Welcome to your audio production course. My name is Tiffany Vasquez. I am a songwriter, producer, engineer, communication specialist. Those are some of the hats I wear, but don't let that intimidate you at all. I'm gonna before let me share a common pathway with you guys. I was once where you are, yes, and I am so happy to be giving back and to be sharing some of my knowledge in the field of sound. I have been doing sound for over 10 years, involved in singing and producing longer than that, and I'm not 30 as yet. So it's a privilege and a real honor to share information wherever I can. So I thought about it, and I said to myself, since I once was where you are, I put myself in the position, as to what really can I give to students for them to learn sound in the most quickly possible way. That's a weird coin. And to get their production on the roll, because our field is very fast paced, very fast producing, and we always have to be like this. So we're expected to produce in our sleep, as journalists and media professionals, and that's where you're going to be one of these days, if you're not already in the field and just taking this course just to have the certification, because I know how that important that is too. Nevertheless, let's get into this session here today. I hope that that you were introduced to sound a little bit by Mistress Harris, and that she give you whet your appetite a little bit. You see, sound and video are very coexistent with each other, so the one needs the other to complement it. So jumping right in it, hopefully this COVID-19 thing could really pass, so that we can do some practical and have some audio shootouts, so you can hear exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this session here today. Get it? Because sound is something you can't see, but you hear. So yeah, getting into it. So I try to put myself in your position because I once was where you are. So I'm trying to do this in, really, compact PowerPoints, so that you can really, get your production moving, get on, because it's about movement in our field. It's about movement. So I created a slide for you, so I'm not going to go too much into the slide, but I'm, just going to talk past points and stuff like that. And then in your time, you can go read on all the technical points that I created for you and stuff like that. Some of the points I will mention, and some you wouldn't hear, so it's in your best interest to try to pay keen attention. All right, I hope I don't bore you and put you to sleep. Here goes. So one of the first things I talked about in my slide is polarity. And the reason that we need to know or understand polarity is because we need to, a lot of people just skim over the gears and they don't get to know the gears. And it's important that for even recording or when you replicate or produce something, you have to know the purpose for a thing to really, use it to your advantage. So one of the first points I want to touch on is polarity. I've listed the 8 types of polarities in the slide that you're supposed to be aware of, but really and truly you only need 4 of those. But before I go into that, let me explain what polarity is. Polarity, in my simplified terms, according to Tiffany's dictionary, is the technology in the microphone that determines how sound energy is interpreted through the pattern that is picked up through its capsule. Mouthful. Yes, I know, mouthful. Can you get any more technical? Of course I can, but it's not really important at this point for you to know all that technicality. So as I mentioned, I'm just going with the punches here, going with the flow. So there are 6 patterns that you should get au fait with when it comes to polarity or pickup/pickup patterns, right? But only 4 of those that you will likely use on a day-to-day or on a regular basis, or even in the industry, only 4 of those. So most likely you'll be using the supercardioid, which is also the shotgun mic, The omnidirectional mic, which is, if you can see what microphone right here on my chest, that's omnidirectional in pattern. And you can also read, because I'll provide more information there on the slide, the cardioid pattern. The most important patterns that you need to focus on are the supercardioid, which is the shotgun mic, the omnidirectional mic, which is what I'm wearing here currently, that's a pickup pattern, and the cardioid mic. As you can see from the slides, the omnidirectional picks up sound in all directions of, so it doesn't just pick up the source, which is me, I'm the source right now speaking, but it picks up a little bit of the room and everything that's going on around it. Then you have the cardioid, which is the heart-shaped pattern, but it's more like reverse heart. And then there is the supercardioid, which is, more geared to sound focused. It's focused in front of it, but it picks up a little bit on the side. And these patterns are most likely found in basic microphones that we know and we've all come across, but we never really bothered to, figure out what type of mic. But they're all, those patterns or those technologies are all, the technology or the polar pattern are all found in common mics that we know as handheld, the shotgun mic, the lapel or the lavalier mic, and then there's the condenser mic. And the condenser mic is typically used in your studio settings because that has phantom power, and then it has to go through preamp and all these things. Preamp is important, and I'm going to discuss a little bit about that coming down here. Now, the key to understanding what needs to be communicated through sound after you've thought about your storyboard and you've fully considered what you need for the production is understanding your gear. And that's what we're doing, understanding pickup patterns and stuff and what we need. So some things that you should ask yourself, or some of the few things that I ask myself when I'm on the production field is, what frequencies do I need to worry about? Have I scouted or vetted my environment? Did I go to it before? Is it a controlled environment where there is, no airplane passing over, no car driving past? Is my environment predictable or controlled? Those are things to consider, because based on your environment, you'll know what tools or what mic you need to bring along. If it's an open thing where you're running, gunning, or you're just trying to be in this person's face all the time and you're outdoor and stuff like that, you might want to use a supercardioid. It's best for that kind of thing. Run and gun situation where you just plug it, just mount it on your camera and you're ready to run and gun shoot. If it's a more controlled environment, you might want to consider the shotgun mic. It's unidirectional, picks up your source really well. But if you are like dead, really good filmmaker quality, and you're ready for that high tech level of sound and stuff like that, you might want to go for the unidirectional mic, which also comes in the form of a shotgun, but it's a little bit more technical and not as forgiving as a supercardioid mic, because you have to have a boom operator really on that one operating that, because it's not forgiving. It's a lot of shakes and it's very sensitive. It's the most sensitive of the microphone patterns. But yeah, you shouldn't worry yourself too much about that. So you need to ask yourselves questions. You need to ask yourself questions before you even touch a piece of gear to go into the field. You need to consider your environment, where you're going to, if it's going to be sit down, if it's going to be a talking head like I'm currently doing. You need to consider, what is it? Where is my environment? What's my subject? What do I need to communicate what is really going on visually, or to support what is really going on visually. Then you need to ask yourself, does your camera have a built-in preamp, or are you going to have to walk with an external audio gear? right? Most cameras today do not come, well, most low budget cameras do not come with a built-in preamp, um, uh, or does not come with something where you can have the option of line input or XLR input, which would be balanced and unbalanced cabling, right? So what do you do in those section? You have in your slide some examples of what's going on there, what you can use and what you can substitute. What mics do you use? Right? So I just told you some examples that if you're outdoors, you might want to consider, if you don't have extra gears, extra external audio, and you want to plug your audio straight into your camera, make sure you do it through a preamp. One, make sure your camera has a preamp. If it doesn't, I suggested some gears that you could have. Other than that, I would recommend every single time to carry external audio. You can't go wrong. And they're so simple these days. They're coming in the form of cell phones. They're making mics now for cell phones and stuff. So you really don't have any excuse. And they're really cheap on Amazon. There's something called iGear that I'm going to link below so that you can see. And they have these pins. Once they have the 2-pin, they're strictly for, computer or listening back. But if they have the 3-pin on them, then you know that you can get a recording from that. It can be used as a mic and as a listening device. And now coming to when you're getting your audio into your interface and you're using input, please use balanced cables. Please use what you know as an XLR because it has both tip, ring, and sleeve, and is not going to easily hum or give you ground noise or floor noise into your recording. So another important thing that you want to note is you must have a camera with, I explained this at the top, a camera with a preamp if you're going to be doing run and gun. Right? And you don't want to carry all the extra gears. You just want something hooked up to the top of your camera. Make sure it's a very good camera with a preamp, or else you're going to run into noise level, floor, and post editing problems, and all these discrepancies in your audio. All these artifacts are going to be added into your audio if you don't have what you call a preamp. And I've suggested some nice preamps. If you don't have a camera that has a preamp or that comes with a preamp, I've suggested also, some nice little cute preamps that you can buy. Now a preamp, the answer is in the question, or the answer is in the word. So a preamp is a pre-amplifier. That means before it hits the internal circuit of your recorder, it is processed. So a preamplifier, what it does is take the nominal level of your audio signal. Now, usually if you plug something that requires phantom power, or you plug anything that requires XLR cabling into your just like that, it's not going to give you the nominal or the most out of your gear, or the most out of your mic that you're using to record. If you don't have a preamplifier, that's going to be a problem, and then it's going to introduce a lot of noise, right? A preamplifier gives you the access to get the most out of your recording in terms of signal passing into the circuit of your recorder. So you have to make sure a preamplifier, you don't usually, some things have built-in preamplifiers, you can't see it, but these signals usually come with preamplifiers built into them underneath that. So make sure that you have something that is preamplified before, so it can process your audio before it hits a circuit board and then give you the most signal out of your gear. You don't want to be recording then it's at a very, very low level. You can't hear anything when you're ready to edit post. That makes no sense. You would have wasted your time. So make sure you get a preamplifier, something that is preamp, so it can process your gear and then process the signal coming in and give you the nominal level or give you the most signal out of your gear. Make sure that your recording device, especially if you're using something, a microphone that has to have phantom power, or it has high cut and stuff like that, all these other features on the mic, make sure that you're running it into a preamplifier, or what you would know as an XLR port. Not all XLR ports are preamplified. So make sure you read up on your gear and you know what's your range or your frequency range of your microphone, and also if the recorder that you're using is preamp. I'm an audio junkie. I'm sorry. I always considered walking with backup. Excuse me, backup gear, backup storage. You can never go wrong with storage. Walk with a flash drive. Doesn't have to be more than 32 gigs, because we're going to talk about formats just now, and you're going to see that you don't have to, get a whole terabyte unless you're doing video with the audio and you're pulling the video off same time with the audio. But to just collect your audio, it doesn't take a whole lot. And if you're recording, you might want to do it in 44.1 by the 16-bit rate. So those are some things that you should take into consideration. Your recorder that is battery powered, right? Or if you don't have a battery powered recorder, you need to get an audio interface if you're in a controlled environment, or a simple cell phone, and you have your gear plugged there, and then your lapel mic plugged into your port of your cell phone. I just told you about the 3 tips that you can get on the 3.5 connector jack, and you reuse that as a recorder. You don't want to take chances with sound, because sound is the emotion of any visual. So I say it again, sound is the emotion or the make or break of your production. You don't want to mess with sound at all. So always make sure when you're recording, if you don't walk with the storage, walk with backup, just in case that device fail. At least you have your interview or some other backup source of the audio that you can get, and you can mix that in. Or say, for example, you run out of battery on the set, your recorder runs out of battery, you have your cell phone or you have something else that's running there a little bit longer, boom, you good to go. Now I mentioned something about interfaces, audio interface, and this is an audio interface. And most mixers, you say, hey, this is a mixer. Yeah, but most mixers now, they're upgrading, and this is what it looks like. Typical mixer now, but this is the answer to bridge the analog world and the digital world. And how they've done this is that they've created a port here at the back here, and you're gonna see some of this in your slide. Well, there are many types, but this one I love it. It's a Xenix Behringer, pretty small, pretty handy. But this is only applicable if you're in a controlled environment, like you're in a room or the studio or some close place where you can have access to a computer and a DAW. DAW is digital audio workstation, and you plug this in and then run it to your DAW, and then you plug your source or your audio into the port here, and it's very good to use balanced cable. Balanced cables are XLR, also known as XLR cables, or you can use what they called tip, ring, or sleeves to get audio properly into your DAW, or if you're doing run and gun, your recorder. There are many formats. There's MP3, there is 40, there is WAV, there is AAC, there is AIF. Those will be explained to you in your slide. AIF is max answer to WAV, right? AIFF if you're working on a Mac, because I know there's a big feud now between, well, there always has been kind of like a big feud between Mac and PC. Which one is better? Which one is better? I like Mac for audio. I'm talking specifically about DAWs here in Digital Audio Workstation. Right? So when you record, don't ever record something MP3. Especially on your phones now. I mean, there's options now to, when you run your lapel mic into your phone. I mean, a lot of people are going to be using technology because, let's face it, we're not rich people. I mean, the oil is there and everything, but we're not rich people as yet like that, where we could be shopping like all those people in Manhattan buying gears. Anyway, yeah, so typical people will use their phone and run a lapel into it to get a nice interview. Do not record MP3. Record wave. Wave is uncompressed and it gives you more dynamic range, more headroom to edit later. You don't want to mess yourself up by recording MP3. That's going to put you in shambles right there and then. Another thing that you should take into consideration when you're recording song, a lot of people, why I'm putting a lot of focus on pre-recording is a lot of people wait until they record and then they try to fix later in whatever DAW they're working in, whether it's Premiere or the bridge to Premiere, which is Adobe Audition, which I know communication students probably have more access to Adobe. Some other people might have access to other DAWs, such as Fruity the Loops, or probably you have access to Pro Tools like I do, or but if you don't have access to these things to edit songs separately, there is no big deal. What you need to focus on is the pre-recording process. Before you actually record, you need to make sure you get a clean source. You need to make sure that you get your format right. I told you, most people listen back in 44.1 kilohertz by a 16-bit rate, right? Most people listen back there. So need to get your format right. Need to understand your environment, right? Maybe go scout it out. Maybe make sure you know what you're dealing with if it's uncontrolled. Let's hope no plane passes by and ruin your external shots if you're going to do external audio. But in those cases, when you're going to do external audio, you get the right gears, from mics to the right line input, to the right format, to the right source. And one of the most important things is your pop filters or your windshield. A lot of people just record, point the mic, and then there's a whole lot of noise just coming in when they're outdoor, a whole lot of noise. And then by time, because you recorded it at a 41 or probably even, let's say, a 48 kilohertz by 24 depth, by the time you bring that in now and you try to like minimize or get rid of background noise and stuff like that, your quality of your audio is significantly dropped, and so you hear a lot of hollow sound. How I know this? It happened to me tons of times. So I can tell you it happened to me tons of times. And another thing that I want to tell you, students, don't be afraid to crank your volume a little bit and make sure you get the signal. That's one of the things that I'm also fearful about. If you have something like a control mechanism on your recorder where you can you reduce your plosives and your sibilants and give like a nice high cut or high pass filter on it, do that before you even record. Why? It's going to take off unnecessary frequencies that you don't need, and also is going to give you a little bit more highs or a little bit more room. So when you put that filter on, the pop filter on your mic to get it into your source, it comes out balanced. If you don't do that, you're going to be recording things that you really don't need in your post-production. So make sure you use a high-pass filter. I'm talking high-end if you're going shotgun mic and stuff like that. But if you're going simple dynamic and you're going straight into your phone, that's cool too. And you don't have like but that this is specifically only for an interview session. If you're going lapel, that means it's on one source. You can't have a lapel on and then, trying to record Tim Till over the other side. It's not going to cut. So if you're going to record Tim over on the other side, you're going to have the right pickup pattern, which is either a omnidirectional mic placed between the two, or a bi-directional, or you're going to have a unidirectional, and then you're going to place them in an environment where you turn the mic this way and then turn the mic that way. You understand? So you get the right tools. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this because I made a lot of mistakes over the past, and I don't want you guys to suffer for that. One of the things that I always regret is that I didn't take my time a little bit more and get it right for my final project for television broadcast. I mean, the documentary went up and it won a prize, whatever that means. But, when I look back at it, I would like to feel a sense of pride in my work, which I really don't, in terms of the audio quality. But for what I knew then and for what was available to me, yeah. All right, so make sure that you really get it right when you're going, before you even record. Get it right. Pop filters, high pass. If you're in the studio, get your pop filter. If you're outdoors and you're using a super cardioid, or or a shotgun mic that has that pattern, or a unidirectional pattern, make sure you have something called a blimp, a dead cat, or a simple windshield. All right? If you're going to be in the studio and you're recording on a dynamic mic, or you're in a more controlled environment and you're recording, you're just facing a mic and you're recording with a condenser mic, then you're going to have something called a pop filter. What this does, I told you, I explained what it does for outdoors, but for indoors, if you're recording in a controlled environment, what this does is get rid of plosives and sibilants. Plosives are the extreme P's, B's, and hard sounds pronounced when you're speaking, when you're singing into your source, which is your mic. Plosives are harsh sounding p, b, t sound that come more from the low end. And this messes you up, because could you imagine you're in the middle of an interview, and then, or you're in the middle of your process of now editing the audio that you've just captured, and then this person says, by the way, and there's a huge p, by the way, and then you're trying to scoop it out and EQ it out, and you're trying to compress it out, but it's not working. Get it right from the source. Cut that thing off. Use a filter. Some your recorders sometimes come built in with high pass filters, or they come built in with compressors and high pass filters that you can set it on. So get you a good recorder that performs those functions. If you just have a simple lapel mic that I'm using, if you notice on this little mic, there is, oh my God, this probably is going to sound horrible, but there is a windshield on this mic. There's a windshield on this mic, right? So yeah, always get that. And also always remember to walk with headphones. I see a lot of people out in the field these days capturing sound with no headphones. How are you capturing sound with no headphones? You have to monitor you have to be able to monitor or listen to what you're capturing. Unless you really know your device, which is the phone or whatever you're plugging into, and you're going to turn that volume down to like 80% or something like that when you're capturing. Or let the person speak if you're using a phone to record through a, lapel device. You make sure that you record that subject for a bit, whoever is speaking, you stop it, you put your headphones in, and then you listen for pops, clicks, or background noise that you might want to eliminate. And then once you're confirmed with the source that that's the level that they're going to be speaking at, or the professional term, the decibel that they're going to be speaking at, then you can now go ahead and record. But keep the process going. But don't ever go into a field where you can't monitor the income of the audio or what you're getting on your audio recording device. That doesn't make any sense. And then you might have to reshoot an entire scene. You know, also listen to your interviewee. Listen to your interviewee and make sure they're not speaking with a lot of highs or p or t or s. Right? Another thing that you want to look out for is your sibilants. If they're going to speak with a lot of highs in their voice, you might want to consider removing or pulling back your audio device, because a shotgun mic is very sensitive. It is the most sensitive of all the audio mics. You might want to consider pulling back on your source and you should have it mounted on a boom pole, because it's not going to work well on your hand because it's very sensitive. It's going to pick up every little move that you do. You don't want to do that. If you're using a shotgun and you're going that way, or even a super cardioid that is a shotgun mic, you wanna have it mounted. As a matter of fact, any source that you're trying to take and you're using a mic, have it mounted or stable. You don't want to be holding it in your hand like that unless you're a reporter. And then of course you have like shock mounts and different things that those mics come with that they can shield sound. The handheld mics are good. They're created for that kind of rigorous or robust movement of the hands and stuff like that. But definitely the unidirectional mic, you don't want to be holding. You want to mount that, right? Make sure if you're recording persons with high sibilants in their voice. So I explained what plosives are. Sibilants is another thing that you have to look out for. High s, harsh sounds on the high end are called sibilants. And these can equally hurt your ears if not compressed or dealt with properly in post. But you want to look out for them in pre. And there are a couple of ways. When you listen back to your interviewee or the source that you're trying to pick up and you monitor that, and then you see and you assess them, you can also from that gear as to how far you're going to put your mic, whether it's closer to the subject if they're quiet, or if they're extremely sibilant or full of sibilants, you're going to pull that unidirectional mic backwards so you can get that, because it's a focus mic. It's going to pick up them anyway, but you want to pull back on that. So you got to be listening. And usually if you're operating a boom pole, you're recording into an external gear, and the external gear is supposed to have headphone output so that you can monitor. Right? So always make sure that you monitor and listen for plosives and sibilants. Background noises too, right? That is why you want to monitor you. You're listening for several things: background noises, plosives, sibilants, and pronunciation. Because here is one of the things that ties me up. You're all perfect, you're all good, but then the interview, you go sit down with them, and then, you know, some of us in Guyana, we're very multicultural, we're very different. So it depends on the type of thing that you're recording. You got to be very careful, even if they're speaking not so well, to listen for these things that will jar you or come back to haunt you later if you don't deal with it pre. Some editing tips that you can really take to heart is make sure that if you're editing your audio separately, and you're not in Premiere, and by the way, some nice DAWs out there that are free are Fruit of the Loops. You have Audacity. You have quite a few of them out of Fruit of the Loops, Audacity, etc., etc. And you can go Google, free DAWs, and you'll find them. And I urge you to keep to experiment with them, get close to them, because you're going to end up in a DAW anyways. If you're not so focused on audio, but you want to get the best out of your source, make sure that your session audio matches the format that you recorded it, right? For Premiere persons who are, recording and stuff like that, I already told you, record uncompressed, which is WAV, record WAV, not MP3, record WAV. It doesn't matter what format you want to choose. It depends on how much storage you have. If it goes, if you want to record 48 kilohertz by 24 bit rate depth, do that. If you want to do 44.1 kilohertz by 16 bit rate depth, do that. But it's all going to come back to 41 anyway, because everybody listens in 41. That's CD quality, by the way. So it doesn't really matter when you record. Back on the tip for editing and importing, when you import, make sure your session matches your audio. But in terms of Premiere, it doesn't really matter, because Premiere takes your audio and converts it anyway, right? And it can convert it. So when you bounce it out, it bounces out as the wave or whatever quality with your video underneath it. But if you didn't get a good source or a good format going in, you're going to definitely feel the consequences of that when you're exporting in Premiere. So you still have to be conscious and careful as to the format that you're recording into your software or recording for your project, right? So if you can edit audio separately, do that. But my advice, when you bring it into your session, you want to make sure that it matches your session file. You want to make sure that you log your audio. A lot of people just bring this stuff into, and then when they're ready to edit, it's all over the place. It's confused, and if another person has to come and edit after you, they don't know which is what interview is that, and then they can't use the shot or the insert, because it's going to take more than the time now that they allotted to editing to try and figure that out if you didn't come in and log your audio, especially if you're responsible for the audio. You don't leave that up to the person that is editing. You do that as the person that is bringing in the audio. So you come, you take it off, you be responsible. If you can't name it, or you don't have a dot to name it in, rename the source file itself that you took off, and and then give it to the editor, so that they now can decide on what they want to do, and they'll have a better sync, you understand, when they're editing. A tip for a person who is the sound, video, audio, DP, everybody, producer in one. Once you bring in your audio into your session, pivotal to login, you have to name your bins. Name your bins, right? Day 1, interview this, Mr. Sweat. Day 2, Mistress Carney. Day 3, Mr. Pumpernickel. Something, just name your stuff, and then within the contents of your bin, also name your file. Take 1, take 2, not so good take. Yes, use this one, sync this one, make suggestions. There's room for that, especially if you're responsible for the sound. The last thing I want to leave with you before I go, perceivable or typical human hearing is from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And you're going to hear what that sounds like right now. So let's test your hearing. People might not be able to hear 20 kilohertz. That is the frequency only for dogs. You heard that? So if you're hearing that, spooky. And then there's 20 hertz, which is not detectable normally by, adults like us. I'm assuming all of us are adults in college, in university, in this class. Yes, adults like us usually don't detect 20 hertz, probably from 30, but we don't detect that. We detect something from around, probably, yeah, 30 to 35 going up there. But that's even frequency that we don't listen to or we don't really need. So that's why I told you, always make sure that you high pass if you have a controlled recorder and you have those access to those settings. Make sure you high pass, make sure you do a light compression, and then you're set to record. All right, so thank you so much for joining DVC 4206. I hope I got that name or the numbers correctly. And I'm looking forward to being with you practically. Trust me, I'm a way better doer than speaker. So really looking forward. Thank you so much for joining and staying through.